disasters. Along with the good times came the bad, with vast numbers of people living around the rivers and creeks, which are prone to irregular inundations of water, came more threats of flooding. And Fairmont is no exception. During the first few years after moving here, I, myself, was attending college in Fairmont, which is long since gone. It was down in Coal Run Hollow, when a downpour hit. Water flowing off the hillside came down, overflowing creeks and streams. The water rose higher and higher. I was lucky. A flood recently struck a location about 10 blocks away that made national news and tore the side off an apartment building. Most of Fairmont itself is high up the banks from the river, and few places worry about flooding from the river. Other local locations which set lower to the river have seen its banks overflowing more than once. Mills operating on the water's power were frequently washed away, as were those caught up in its force. In a turn of misfortunate events, flooding coupled with a logjam wiped out the small town of Valley Falls upriver. Valley Falls had previously been struck with a fire that wiped out half their town. There are reports of people from 1852 and 1873 of the run-down, dilapidated condition of a great deal of the town. There were many mines in the area, and many buildings in town were shoddily built. Perhaps this contributed to the Fairmont fire, which destroyed much of the business district and many homes. Citizens formed a bucket line to help extinguish the fires. The wood frames of old houses went up fast during a time when fire departments did not exist or were lacking the proper equipment. Smaller fires have struck Fairmont as well. The worst I've seen was the fire at the Tropeia apartment building. In its early years, it was the city hospital and nursing school. An arsonist, rumored to be a jilted lover, set fire to the building. The fire was spotted about 3 a.m. on April 21st, 1989, by a Fairmont police officer who saw a man and woman leap from the upper story windows. The man, who was not identified, survived with leg injuries. The woman, Paulita Ilgren, died, but authorities did not know immediately whether the fall or the fire killed her. Other victims were found in the rubble and identified as Robert Jones, 36, Kenneth Godfrey, about 40, William Hayes, 50, Jack Pheasant, 53, Nancy Moore, 43, and Catherine Hayes, 68, who was not believed to be related to William Hayes. The arsonist, Stuckey, was arrested after the discovery of the first victim. Rumors from a firefighter who was present say the local police dangled the 23-year-old from a bridge until he confessed. 7 people died in total, 4 survived. The upper floors that collapsed during the fire were removed, leaving only the main floor and basement. The single-floor building has passed hands over the years, becoming Vincent's Bar and Restaurant, then an educational supply store. And, as you can imagine, there has been reports of some paranormal activity going on, such as an apparition of a woman being seen just standing in different parts of the building, the smell of smoke coming and going, odd light anomalies, and the feeling that you were being touched. I've been in there once or twice. I did feel like I was being watched the whole time I was there.
I always feel like somebody's watching me.
Mining, while bringing in money to the city, extorted a great toll on the miners. West Virginia's 2 most notorious coal mine disasters happened a few miles apart in Marion County due to a lack of safety precautions and dangerous working conditions, at Monongah in 1907 and Farmington in 1968. Farmington claimed 78 lives, and Monongah a staggering minimum of 361. Both disasters were followed by significant new federal legislation intended to improve mine safety. Due to Fairmont's location in a valley, wind gusts are normally tempered by the mountains. Further upstream of us, the town of Shinnston was devastated by a tornado. The most notable tornado struck on June 23, 1944, causing extensive damage and fatalities. The tornado of 1944 was rated as an F3 with winds estimated between 158 to 206 miles per hour. Local infrastructure, including homes and businesses, was heavily impacted, leading to a long recovery process. Infrastructure. The courthouses. Originally built in 1820, the first courthouse, a two-story red brick structure, was completed in 1844. The building had a cupola with a bell and wood columns supporting a gable roof. It housed various county offices with a large courtroom and jury rooms on the second floor. As the city grew, the courthouse became too small. Locals also hated how the building was out of place with the newer buildings constructed and considered it an eyesore. When a decision was finalized to tear it down on July 14, 1897, rowdy patrons at the local bars were easily enticed into taking the sledgehammer and other tools to start tearing it down that very day. Overnight, the old courthouse was damaged beyond repair, ensuring a new courthouse would need to be built. The current Marion County Courthouse is a Beaux-Arts style building, and the courthouse was constructed from 1897 to 1900 and was designed by the architectural firm of Yost and Packard of Columbia, Ohio. Its dome is topped by a figure carrying the scales of justice. The Fire Department. After 1879, the year of the Great Fairmont Fire, the first fire department in Fairmont was organized in 1886. It was initially known as the Fairmont Fire Company. The department was formed in response to increasing fire hazards in the growing community. The first fire station was located on Main Street. Volunteer firefighters made up the original team. Horse-drawn wagons carried water tanks and firemen to the scene, equipped with hand pumps. The fire department was relocated to Cleveland Avenue between Adams and Washington Streets. The first motorized fire truck arrived in the early 1900s. Fire trucks evolved over the years to include modern firefighting equipment. Community fundraising helped early fire trucks and equipment. The fire department now sits on Quincy Street. The police department. The first sheriff of Marion County, where Fairmont is located, was appointed in 1831. The sheriff's role was crucial for law enforcement in the growing community. Historical records indicate that the sheriff's office was integral to local governance. The sheriff lived in a house beside the courthouse, built in 1912, with a connection to the jailhouse in behind. It is now the Fairmont Historical Museum. The Fairmont Police Department was established in 1898. It was created to address growing public safety concerns in the area. The department, initially, it focused on maintaining order and enforcing laws. The police department now sits on Quincy Street. Numerous unsolved murders have taken place in Fairmont's history. This kind of leads us now to Water Street. This waterfront street sat in a bad location of Palatine known as the Docks. Aside from a massive number of bars and prostitutes, Water Street became home to several Mafia gangs. In the early 20th century, Italians found work in the coal mines of West Virginia and stayed to create a pocket of Italian Americans that few outsiders know. Migrants to the coal fields of West Virginia generally arrived via the port of New York and might move around frequently in search of work. There were thousands of coal miners in the region living far from their families. All of these rootless, friendless men were dollar signs to career criminals like Lias and the Familia leadership. Lias in Wheeling and the Familia in Clarksburg and Fairmont hosted brothels, saloons, and gambling. The Familia also ran classic Mafia rackets like kidnapping for ransom and blackmail. The Familia Vagabonda first emerged in Marion County in 1908 as a group of Italian-born criminals under the leadership of Frank Pisconeri. The gang carried out a campaign of extortion in the Italian community and was also involved in gambling, narcotics, and trafficking. Bootlegging, prostitution, kidnapping, and murder were also in their sights. West Virginia was the adopted home of thousands of Italian miners and their families, and the Mafia preyed upon them. Pisconeri was found guilty in 1909, along with 8 other men, of felonious conspiracy to assault and rob. 10 more men in the same case were convicted of misdemeanor crimes. In Fairmont, West Virginia, in the 20s, the Familia Vagabonda held the reins to every legal and illegal vice. In 1927, Italian entrepreneur Joseph Argiro debuted the pepperoni roll in Fairmont, a kind of pared-down stromboli stuffed with another American invention, pepperoni. Like the pepperoni roll, the Familia's offerings were designed to cater to the needs and tastes of Italian coal miners. Wherever Italian immigrants settled in large numbers, there were Italian criminals preying upon them. In West Virginia's coal mining counties, predators contrived to coax the dollars from their countrymen's pockets. They ranged from low pickpockets and confidence men to the owners of large establishments. At this end of the range, the opportunists provide booze and other recreational drugs and places to consume them, hosted games of chance, and imported sex workers to mingle with the hundreds of lonely men. To keep it all running smoothly, there were enforcers, guards, pimps, and for the really hard cases, arsonists, strong-armed professionals, and hitmen. Histories of organized crime in the region often begin with Big Bill Lias. Lias was of Greek heritage and controlled vice in Wheeling, West Virginia, about 70 miles northwest of Fairmont. In a couple of his rackets, Lias was beholden to Mafia bosses from other cities. He reportedly paid Johnny Torrio in Chicago for the wire service that allowed him to take sports bets, and Stefano Magadino in Buffalo for some other service related to the vice trades. Not qualified to be a member of an ethnic mafia, he was one of its major customers. Separate from Lias and his operation were the Familia Vagabond, or Wandering Family, an organized criminal gang with an all-Italian membership. The Familia had at least 2 crews, one in Fairmont, West Virginia, the seat of Marion County, and another in the Harrison County seat of Clarksburg, West Virginia, about 20 miles to the southwest. John C. McKinney, a detective who investigated the group, identified them as the Familia Vagabonda. At that time, local media simply identified the group as the Black Hand. The next leader of the Familia who appeared in the news was John Torcia. Torcia was born Giovanni Torcia in San Giovanni in Fiore in Calabria in 1880. He arrived in the U.S. around 1902 and claimed he was made to pay a membership fee to the Familia Vagabonda in Fairmont, but he was not their victim. He was their co-commander. A double murder committed on Christmas Eve of 1914 was painted by attorneys for the defense of having been orchestrated by Torcia and Charlie Rando, the leaders of the Familia Vagabonda. Facing these charges, Tropeia turned state witness. His followers, 5 young men ranging from 18 to 25, were sentenced for up to 10 years in prison. The wife of one of the youths went to prison for a year for taking part in the conspiracy. Originally, Tropeia expected to be sent home to Italy with his wife and children when he was done testifying against his fellows, but he changed his mind and the family remained in Marion County. John became a U.S. citizen in April 1922. The prosecuting attorney in the murder trial, Tuska Morris, swore an affidavit for his naturalization petition. In Clarksburg, the local Familia crew was led by Big Joe Cinetti. Born in Strambino, a commune of Torino, Big Joe was a northern Italian, a Piemontese. He arrived in 1903 and worked in coal mines. According to legend, Cianetti was a physical, powerful man who could straighten a horseshoe with his bare hands. Cianetti was a bootlegger who was killed by unknown rivals in December of 1921. Immediately after, 5 of his friends, Richard Dapper Dick, Ferry, Philip Canizzaro, Nicholas Salamonte, Samuel Moratore, and Pasquale Patsy Corby. They began looking for Frank Vesperer and Francesco Napolitano, a.k.a. Frank Naples, the 2 main rivals for Cianetti's position in the underworld of Clarksburg. Vesperer was shot and seriously injured in February. Naples was lured out of hiding to his death soon after. Vesperer escaped the hospital where he was recovering and ran to Baltimore, where he succumbed to the stress of his flight and expired. That's a gentler way of saying he was dead. The Familia Vagabonda was considered to be the ultimate power behind the retaliatory shootings. Cianetti's 5 friends were charged with murder. Vito Corby, who was Patsy's father, and Vincenzo Jim Urso, the leader of the Familia in Fairmont, were charged as well. Jim Urso fled justice and wasn't seen for almost 20 years. Ferry, Canizzaro, Salamonte, and Moratore were all hanged. Patsy Corby got a life sentence, but later commuted and was released in 1932. The fugitive Vincenzo Urso reappeared about the same time as Corby, living with his family in Clairton City, a steel town outside of Pittsburgh. Urso was remarkable amongst his colleagues in that he was a Sicilian deeply embedded in a Calabrian Mafia. In 1939, his daughter married Nunziato Patrone, a Calabrian. Patrone's sister, Laura, was married to Antonio Ripepi, whose family had other connections to organized crime. In 1923, 9 of the Familia's members were arrested in connection with a dozen murders and several dynamic bombings in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. One of their victims was a woman named Bella Lemmon. Remember that name, she'll play an important role here in a little bit. In early 1924, several members were executed for murder. Nicholas Salamonte, Philip Canizzaro, and Richard Ferry were sentenced to be hanged on 4th of January 1924. Approximately a month later, on February 15th, Samuel Moratore was also executed. Another member, Pasquale Patsy Corby, had been sentenced to life imprisonment in April of 1923 for the January 16, 1922 murder of local barber Francesco Frank Naples Napolitano, a reputed Camorra member. Corby's sentence was later commuted to 18 years. He was paroled in 1932 and relocated to Baltimore, Maryland, where he led a Calabrian Mafia group that later became the Gambino crime family's Baltimore crew. Now back to Bella. Lily Bell, Bella Lemmon, was found dead in the roadside outside a golf course near Baltimore, Maryland, with nothing but a hat. Thus begins the ending of the Familia Vagabonda, as well as Bella Lemmon. Her hat's lining, made from a Fairmont, West Virginia newspaper, enabled her identification. She had taken a train from Fairmont the same day, Police believe she was killed to keep her from exposing the blackmail gang of which she was a member. Her friend, Carmela Maloney, got a ride from Frank Corby after getting out of jail in Baltimore and disappeared. Patsy and Tony Corby were identified by 3 members of the Mafia in Clarksburg as Lemmon's killers. According to a Baltimore paper, Tony went on the run for years with clues pointing to him hiding out in Mexico, Italy, and somewhere in the western United States. In 1926, it was reported that his arrest was imminent, but nothing came of it. In 1939, the fugitive Tony Corba got married in Youngstown, Ohio, to Catherine Mitolo, a widow of Nick Malamo. Nick died in a bootleg war in 1927. The Malamo brothers were born in Ardore, Reggio Calabria, and ran lotteries and other rackets in Youngstown. The Youngstown family had working ties to Calabrian gangs in Cleveland and Pittsburgh. In the late 50s, Tony Corby and Dominic Malamo jointly owned the Yo-Hio Social Club. Malamo became the boss of the Calabrese's organization in Youngstown. Originally, they were pretty much all removed from power. Now, hospitals. Dr. John R. Cook was born in Virginia on January 24, 1863. At the age of 21, Dr. Cook completed his degree in medicine and surgery at Jefferson Medical College in Philadelphia in 1884. In 1886, Dr. Cook was recruited to Fairmont as the company doctor for the Montana and New England mines that were to be later owned by the Watson family. What is now in 1898 on Merchant Street in the building that would later become the Tropeia apartment building, where 7 died in an arson fire. It was a hospital as well as a nurse training school. 4 years later, they would move it to the corner of 2nd Street and Gaston Avenue in Fairmont. In 1901, Dr. Cook purchased the J. Walter Barnes property on Gaston Avenue and 2nd Street. This Victorian structure served as a local community hospital that could accommodate up to 20 patients. It took about $100,000 to build and furnish Cook Hospital back in 1903 and was the start of the Community Medical Center for Marion County. In April of 1904, a new 4-story, 100-bed hospital and a school for nursing designed by architect Charles E. Bagley was opened and named Cook Hospital. Cook Hospital was one of the first community hospitals to become operational in West Virginia. Cook Hospital quickly garnered a reputation as being one of the finest medical facilities in the state. For its time, Cook Hospital was considered one of the best constructed, equipped, furnished, and conducted medical institutions in the Mid-Atlantic region. In 1938, the Cook Hospital Board of Directors permitted a sale of bonds with Public Works Administration funding and transferred ownership of the facility to the City of Fairmont. The City of Fairmont soon began surveying potential sites for a new hospital to be built. Farmland off Locust Avenue was eventually chosen and purchased for a new Fairmont hospital. On December 29, 1938, the City of Fairmont broke ground for the new Fairmont General Hospital to be built at a cost of $730,780. United States Senator M.M. Neely, Fairmont Mayor Fred Wilson, and other local dignitaries spoke at the groundbreaking ceremony. The new hospital was completed and opened in 1939. By the 1960s, the need for a larger modern facility became apparent. An $8.6 million facility was financed with the support of a $1.25 million community contribution, the largest public fund drive in the history of Marion County. Construction for the new hospital commenced in 1969 and was opened in 1970. In 1987, the hospital would open a new emergency department and special care unit. The emergency department, known for its personal care and efficiency, consistently ranks for having one of the shortest emergency room wait times in West Virginia. During the 1990s, the hospital continued its growth and expansion with the opening of an ambulatory surgery unit, cath lab, and rehab suites, an admissions evaluation unit, customer service center, and behavioral medicine unit. At the turn of the century, the hospital opened a new wound healing center, a geropsychiatric unit, a digital mammography machine, and a 64 CT scanner to provide its patients the newest advancements in healthcare technology. In 2014, Electo Healthcare LLC acquired the hospital and renamed the facility Fairmont Regional Medical Center. In 2015, Fairmont Regional Medical Center was named a top performer by the Joint Commission for the 5th year in a row. Fairmont Regional Medical Center was the only hospital in the state of West Virginia to be awarded distinction 5 consecutive years. Since its inception as Miners Hospital No. 3 in 1899, the residents of Marion County and the surrounding areas have looked to this facility for continuing health care. In 1980, the original structure was replaced with a new building on the same site. Renamed Marion Healthcare Hospital in 1983 and renamed again in 2003 to John Manchin Senior Healthcare Center to provide quality medical care to its patrons. Although recently, within the last few months or so, they tried to sell it and it's being appealed, and I'm not sure of the situation of the place now. Now, the post office. I'm finding little information on the location of the early post offices. David Morgan operated the mail in the borough of Pettyjohn on the south side until his death in 1813. The first post office in Fairmont was established December 11, 1820. A post office existed on Monroe Street, the site of the present-day library, until prior to 1942. From there it moved to 200 Fairmont Avenue, a giant brick and limestone Depression-era public building, with echoes of the courthouse deco-like severity in its detail and massing. A carved stone eagle surmounts the entranceway, roughly from 1940 to the mid-1980s. From there it moved to its present location on Madison Street. The Palatine Post Office was established in 1891 and is still serving the local community.